Welcome back today. We explore the value of these most valuable Washington quarter dollar coins in dirty or different condition that could be worth a lot of money. So let's get started. First up, the 1995 Washington quarter is part of the ongoing series of quarters issued by the United States Mint, featuring George Washington on the obverse and an eagle on the reverse. This quarter falls within the period of modern U.S. coinage, when coins were being produced in high volumes, yet some unique and rare errors would slip through the mint's production process. The Washington quarter was originally designed by John Flanagan in 1932 to commemorate George Washington's 200th birthday. Over the years, the design has remained relatively consistent, with only minor modifications for commemorative purposes. The 1995 Washington quarter, however, gained attention not just for its place in the series, but due to an unusual color alteration, something that's very rare in coins: the full rusty red color. As with other Washington quarters, the obverse features a portrait of George Washington, surrounded by the inscription Liberty and the year of minting 1995. The reverse depicts an eagle with outstretched wings, symbolizing strength and freedom, with the words United States of America and E pluribus unum inscribed around it. The coin was minted at the Denver Mint, which is identified by the D mint mark beneath the eagle. What makes this coin particularly interesting is the full rusty red color. Typically, coins of this era exhibit wear from circulation, but they do not have the intense oxidation that produces such a pronounced rust effect. Coins in this condition are rare, and collectors are intrigued by how this transformation occurred. The coin's color could result from exposure to certain environmental conditions, such as humidity, salt, or chemical interactions over time, which is not typical for most coins in circulation. The mintage of the 1995 Washington quarter was relatively high, with millions of these coins produced. In total, approximately 1.4 billion quarters were minted in 1995 across all locations, with the Denver Mint producing over 400 million of them. Despite the large number of coins produced, the rarity of the full rusty red condition makes this piece a standout. Coins with unusual colorations or weathering tend to attract more attention, which significantly impacts the value. In today's market, a 1995 Washington quarter in full rusty red color with the D mint mark could fetch anywhere from $8,000 depending on its specific condition and buyer interest. However, this value can increase dramatically if the coin has been authenticated by a grading service such as PCGS or NGC. Coins that are graded at a high level, even in unusual conditions, may have a premium attached due to their rarity. If the coin has received a grade of AU about uncirculated or mint state, its value could potentially exceed $9,000 in the right auction setting. Although this particular quarter does not exhibit a minting error in terms of misprints or off-center strikes, the condition and color of the coin have drawn the attention of collectors of error coins. Error collectors are often willing to pay a premium for coins that exhibit unusual or unexpected characteristics, even if they aren't official minting errors. Collectors are particularly drawn to coins with distinctive colorations, as these pieces are often seen as unique. In this case, the rusty red coloration may also hint at environmental interaction, adding a layer of intrigue for those interested in how coins change and transform over time. Rusty or oxidized coins are generally not in high demand because most collectors prefer coins in pristine or near-mint condition. However, certain collectors see value in the stories that these coins tell about their life on Earth, making them more attractive to the right buyer. Many collectors view these quarters as a symbol of the evolving world of numismatics, where rarity and value are not always defined by minting errors, but also by the uniqueness of a coin's condition. This makes coins like the 1995 Washington quarter even more desirable. Next up, the 1982 Washington quarter was minted during a transitional period in U.S. coinage. By the early 1980s, the mint was dealing with rising metal costs and adjusting to new production methods. The design of the Washington quarter remained unchanged from the 1930s, though its production numbers had been considerably high due to the ongoing need for quarters in circulation. The 1982 Washington quarter features the typical John Flanagan design on the obverse and reverse, with George Washington on the front and an eagle on the reverse. However, what makes this particular coin noteworthy is its large date and the prominent error in the mint mark. The design is standard for the Washington Quarter series, but the large date feature was a distinct characteristic of the 1982 coins. While the 1982 quarters were mostly issued with a smaller date, a number of these quarters were minted with a larger, bolder date. This error, while subtle, is enough to make the coin stand out among others from the same year. The reverse side features the eagle, and again, the D mint mark, indicating the coin was minted at the Denver Mint, is present. But the real error here lies in the mint mark itself. It is not just misaligned or doubled. It appears to be a mistake in the production process, which resulted in an unusual, non-standard appearance. Additionally, the coin's condition is heavily influenced by its exposure to dirt, causing it to have a black, dirty look that further sets it apart from other more pristine versions of this quarter. The total mintage of the 1982 Washington quarter was around 414 million coins, with the Denver Mint producing a significant portion of that number. While this was a regular production year for quarters, the existence of the large date error and the unique black, dirty condition has made certain examples highly sought after by error coin collectors. In today's auction market, a 1982 Washington quarter in black, dirty condition with the D error mint mark could be worth between $14,000 depending on the severity of the condition and the collector's interest in error coins from this year. If the coin has been authenticated and graded by professional services, it could see an increase in value, especially if it is identified as having a major error, making it even rarer and more valuable. The 1982 Washington quarter is considered a rare find due to its large date and the D mint mark error, which could be a result of improper die preparation or other mishaps at the Denver Mint during that period. Errors like these often drive collectors wild, as they represent a mistake made during the minting process. Collectors of error coins are drawn to these oddities, and they often value them higher than their non-error counterparts, as they are seen as anomalies in the minting process. The black, dirty condition of this coin adds another layer of collector interest. Many coin collectors are interested in pieces that show signs of wear and age, and coins in unusual states of dirt or oxidation are particularly valuable to those who specialize in problem coins. The story behind the coin, how it came to be in such a condition, adds to its mystery and allure. Next up, the 1965 Washington quarter stands as one of the most iconic coins in the United States history. As the mid-1960s were a time of significant change for American currency, the 1965 Washington quarter marks a pivotal moment. It was during this era that the U.S. Mint made a monumental decision to eliminate silver from most circulating coinage. This was done as a response to a nationwide shortage of silver and rising costs of production due to the demand for silver in various industrial uses. The Coinage Act of 1965 allowed the mint to switch the composition of quarters from 90% silver to a more economical mix of copper and nickel. In 1965, the Washington quarter, which had been minted in silver since its introduction in 1932, was one of the first coins to undergo this transition. The mint decided to strike the 1965 quarters using a copper-nickel-clad composition instead. This significant change not only made the coin more affordable, but also altered its appearance, leaving collectors and investors to eagerly watch for variations in the coins that might mark this transitional period. The 1965 Washington quarter's move to copper-nickel composition, combined with its first year of release without silver, holds substantial importance for both numismatists and history buffs alike. However, the most important aspect of the 1965 Washington quarter is its transition away from the silver content. It became a symbol of the shift in the U.S. Mint's strategy to maintain an adequate supply of coinage while addressing the nation's economic concerns regarding precious metals. In terms of size, the coin retained the same diameter, 24.3 millimeters, and weight 6.25 grams as its silver predecessors, despite the change in material. These specifications ensured that the 1965 Washington quarter continued to function as a stable unit of currency. One of the defining features of the 1965 Washington quarter is its high mintage. The total number of 1965 quarters produced was over 1.8 billion, making it a relatively common coin in the grand scheme of things. The Philadelphia Mint struck over 1.6 billion quarters, and the Denver Mint produced over 240 million. However, due to its significance as the first year that the U.S. Mint removed silver from circulating quarters, the coin has drawn the attention of collectors who are eager to complete sets of transitional pieces in their collections. While it may not be one of the rarest coins out there, it certainly holds a special place in the world of U.S. numismatics. For a coin in fine condition, collectors can expect the 1965 Washington quarter to hold a market value between $40,000. While it may not be worth a significant amount at face value, it is essential to understand that collectors are drawn to these coins for their historical importance. For coins in higher grades, such as extremely fine or uncirculated conditions, the value can rise to anywhere between $45,000, depending on the specific quality of the coin and its provenance. While the 1965 Washington quarter is not known for any specific minting errors, there are some variations and factors that influence its value. For instance, certain 1965 quarters show signs of die wear or other slight inconsistencies in the minting process. Coins with unique characteristics, such as minor die cracks or doubling, can command higher values among collectors. These types of imperfections are often prized by those seeking rare examples from this transitional period. One of the most notable errors involving the 1965 Washington quarter relates to the coin's composition. Occasionally, some 1965 quarters were struck with the wrong amount of copper or nickel, leading to subtle but noticeable differences in their appearance. While these errors are rare, they are highly sought after by advanced collectors who enjoy hunting for variations in coinage. In terms of collector interest, the 1965 Washington quarter is considered an important addition to any collection. It is especially popular with collectors who focus on coins from the 1960s, as the coin represents the end of the silver era and the beginning of a new chapter in U.S. currency. Many collectors consider the 1965 Washington quarter a key date in modern coinage, as it marks the start of a new era in terms of material usage and design. Over the past few years, the market value of the 1965 Washington quarter has remained relatively stable. While the coin is not rare enough to be considered a high-value collector's piece, it is still valuable due to its historical significance. As interest in transitional coins and modern U.S. coinage continues to grow, it is likely that the value of the 1965 Washington quarter will see gradual increases, especially in high-grade conditions. Coins that are graded MS-65 or higher can fetch values closer to $68,000, and sometimes even more at auction depending on their overall quality and market demand. Next up, the 1968 Washington quarter represents another transitional moment in the history of U.S. coinage. While it doesn't carry the same significance as the 1965 quarter, which marked the end of silver coinage, it still plays a vital role in the broader context of American numismatics. The year 1968 was a time of cultural and political upheaval in the United States, with significant events such as the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. and the ongoing Vietnam War dominating the national conversation. From a numismatic perspective, the 1968 quarter was part of a broader effort by the U.S. Mint to create a series of coins that would be both functional and cost-effective in terms of production. Much like the 1965 Washington quarter, the 1968 quarter was struck using the same copper-nickel-clad composition that had been introduced a few years earlier. By the time 1968 rolled around, the U.S. Mint had adjusted to the use of this new material, and it had become the standard for coinage production. The 1968 quarter is notable for its large date variety, which means that the numbers in the date appear larger than usual. This is an example of a subtle yet important variation that collectors look for when assessing Washington quarters from this time period. Like the 1965 quarter, the design of the 1968 Washington quarter featured John Flanagan's portrait of George Washington on the obverse, along with a heraldic eagle on the reverse. The coin's design remained virtually unchanged from the earlier Washington quarters, maintaining its iconic status as a symbol of American unity and strength. Despite the changes in composition, the visual characteristics of the coin remained constant, ensuring that it continued to represent the enduring legacy of Washington's leadership. What makes the 1968 Washington quarter unique, however, is the presence of the large date variety. The numbers in the date are significantly larger and more prominent than on other quarters from this era. This slight alteration, though not immediately obvious to the casual observer, is a notable feature for coin collectors who specialize in Washington quarters, or those who enjoy tracking the subtle differences in minting practices from year to year. The 1968 quarter's reverse features a bold eagle, which is depicted with its wings spread and its gaze directed outward. The design is striking, emphasizing the nation's strength and unity during a turbulent time in American history. The eagle itself is a symbol of freedom and the power of the American people. The total mintage of the 1968 Washington quarter was substantial, with more than 500 million coins produced across the Philadelphia and Denver mints. As a result, this coin is relatively common in circulated condition, although certain variations, such as the large date variety, are more sought after by collectors. For the 1968 Washington quarter in its standard condition, values typically range from $50,000. However, the coin's market value can increase depending on the presence of specific errors or variations, such as the large date variety or specific condition factors. Coins in higher grades can command significantly higher values. For example, an MS-65 or MS-66 example of a 1968 Washington quarter can sell for $58,000, with auction prices occasionally reaching even higher amounts when the coin is in excellent condition. The black color and dirty condition of a coin do not typically increase its value in the traditional sense. However, these characteristics do contribute to its appearance and can affect its grading. Coins that show signs of dirt, tarnish, or discoloration often experience depreciation in value, as collectors typically prefer coins with minimal wear and a clean, appealing surface. Even so, coins with unusual surface characteristics can still spark interest among collectors who specialize in oddities or error coins, so there is always a market for them. Like many coins from this era, the 1968 Washington quarter is not typically associated with major minting errors. However, there are some minor variations that can influence the coin's value, including differences in the positioning of the date and slight variations in the design details. For example, some collectors are interested in coins where the date appears slightly off-center, or the minting process caused slight shifts in the design. These are relatively minor errors, but can be highly desirable to error coin collectors. The market for 1968 Washington quarters has shown steady growth in recent years, with particular interest in high-grade specimens and those with distinctive characteristics. Coins in dirty or blackened condition, while not generally considered to be highly valuable, still find their place in the niche markets for collectors who value oddities or coins with unique visual appeal. Next up, the 1969 Washington quarter dollar is part of a fascinating period in American coinage history. During the 1960s, the United States was experiencing significant economic and social change. The 1960s was a decade marked by civil rights movements, political unrest, and growing cultural shifts. However, in the world of numismatics, this decade also represented a time when certain coinage errors began to appear, making certain years of coins highly desirable to collectors. In particular, the 1969 Washington quarter is one of the most interesting years for collectors, not necessarily because of its widespread popularity, but due to a few rare features that have emerged over time. This quarter, made primarily of 90% silver and 10% copper until 1964, transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition starting in 1965. Therefore, by 1969, the quarter was composed of a sandwich of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a change that affected the appearance and durability of the coin. The 1969 Washington quarter features George Washington on the obverse, as well as the iconic eagle on the reverse. However, the most interesting aspect of this coin comes from a rare error, a cutline on Washington's portrait, which is what makes this coin particularly valuable. Errors such as this are what collectors search for, as they represent moments in the minting process that did not go as planned. What makes the 1969 Washington quarter truly stand out in the collector world, however, is the cutline error on Washington's portrait. This error occurs when an irregularity in the die or minting process causes a line to be imprinted across the portrait, often resembling a scratch or gouge in the metal. This error is relatively rare and makes this particular quarter highly sought after by coin collectors. The 1969 Washington quarter was minted in massive numbers. According to the United States Mint, more than 500 million quarters were produced in 1969, which means that this coin was fairly common in circulation at the time. However, the number of coins that exhibit the cutline error is much lower, and this rarity is what elevates the coin's value. The cutline error on the portrait of Washington is what sets this coin apart from its more common counterparts. While the vast majority of 1969 Washington quarters are unremarkable, the ones with this specific error are far less common. The error likely occurred due to a malfunction in the dies used for striking the coins, which led to an accidental incision on Washington's face. Collectors who specialize in errors and oddities in coinage are particularly drawn to coins with mistakes like this one. For collectors, errors like the cutline on Washington's portrait are highly coveted, as they are seen as unique and indicative of a time when the minting process wasn't entirely automated. The cutline gives this coin a certain charm and tells a story about how imperfect the minting process could be, which is a characteristic that only makes such coins more valuable and intriguing to numismatists. In today's market, a 1969 Washington quarter with a cutline error in circulated condition can be worth anywhere between $66,000 depending on the severity of the error and its visual appeal. Coins in better condition, or those with clearer error lines, can fetch even higher prices at auction. The market for error coins, particularly those like the 1969 Washington quarter, is quite strong. Although the mintage of this coin was high, the rarity of the error and its appeal to collectors looking for unique, imperfect pieces drives up its market value. As with many error coins, the value largely depends on the rarity of the error, the overall condition of the coin, and collector demand. On average, a circulated 1969 Washington quarter with a cutline error might be valued anywhere between $66,000 in auction markets. For higher-grade examples or coins with a particularly prominent error, you could see prices reaching up to $72,000 or more. Next up, fast forward to the early 1990s, and you find yourself in the midst of a different era in the history of U.S. coinage. The 1990s were a time of economic growth and technological advancement, and the minting of coins had largely shifted to using modern methods that minimized the kinds of errors seen in earlier years. However, despite the improvements in the minting process, mistakes still happen. The 1991 Washington quarter is a prime example of such a mistake, featuring a P-error mint mark. This coin is part of the Washington quarter series that has been minted since 1932, with George Washington's portrait remaining unchanged throughout the years. The 1991 coin is particularly notable because of the mint mark error. Instead of the correct D mint mark for Denver, the coin erroneously has a P mint mark, denoting the Philadelphia Mint. In the case of the 1991 Washington quarter, however, the mint mark error is what makes this coin interesting. The P mint mark, which was used for coins minted in Philadelphia, was never intended to appear on quarters after 1981. This was because the U.S. Mint stopped minting quarters in Philadelphia after that year and instead began minting them at the Denver Mint. Therefore, the P mint mark appearing on a quarter from 1991 is an error and is considered a rare and valuable anomaly in the world of numismatics. The 1991 Washington quarter had a relatively large mintage, with billions of these coins being struck in various mints across the United States. However, as with all coins that have an error or mistake, the total number of 1991 Washington quarters with a P mint mark is much smaller. The P mint mark error is the defining characteristic of this coin. Errors like this are highly prized by collectors, especially because they are relatively rare in this specific year and minting process. While the mistake of placing the P mint mark on the quarter was not a major one in the grand scheme of minting history, it still stands out as a significant flaw in the process. Collectors are especially drawn to mint mark errors, as they represent both historical anomalies and opportunities to own something that was never intended to exist in that form. This error adds value and intrigue to what would otherwise be a standard coin, turning it into a piece of numismatic history. In terms of market value, a 1991 Washington quarter with a P mint mark error in dirty condition is generally worth anywhere from $20,000 in auction markets. However, if the coin were to be in better condition or feature a more pronounced error, its value could increase substantially. Coins with this type of error that have been graded in higher conditions could sell for $26,000 or more, depending on their appeal to collectors. Next up, the 1970 Washington quarter dollar, minted by the United States Mint, was part of a series that showcased the iconic image of George Washington, our first president, on the obverse side of the coin. The reverse side depicts an eagle perched on a branch with the inscription United States of America and E pluribus unum, along with the denomination quarter dollar. The coin is part of a series that spanned decades, with Washington's portrait being a lasting tribute to the nation's first president. By 1970, the coinage had moved away from silver to copper nickel-clad compositions for quarters, reflecting the economic needs and trends of the time. In 1970, there were significant shifts in the minting processes and coin compositions, largely influenced by economic changes such as inflation. The United States Mint was facing a surge in demand for coinage, particularly for circulating quarters, as more and more coins were needed to meet the demands of everyday transactions. This quarter, in particular, was minted with a significant error that would come to light in subsequent years, driving its rarity and value among collectors. The mintage of the 1970 Washington quarter is key to understanding its rarity and market value today. The total production of the 1970 quarter exceeded 300 million coins, which, on the surface, might suggest that it is a fairly common coin. However, the scarcity of certain error variants, especially those that feature mint mark errors and unique defects, has significantly increased their value. In terms of design, the 1970 Washington quarter features the standard obverse portrait of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan. The reverse features the eagle, a powerful symbol of the United States designed by Herman McNeil. The design is simple yet symbolic, representing the nation's enduring strength and heritage. The 1970 coin was produced in two major mint facilities: Philadelphia, which does not mark its coins with a mint mark, and Denver, which uses a D mint mark. As such, the Denver minted coins were identified by the D mint mark, a key feature when it comes to understanding error coins. Error: D mint mark in lamination. Error condition. One of the most intriguing aspects of the 1970 Washington quarter is its error variant, particularly when it features the D mint mark in a lamination error condition. A lamination error occurs when layers of metal do not properly bond together during the minting process. This can create peeling or flaking areas on the coin, which is known as the lamination defect. These types of errors are relatively rare and are highly sought after by collectors. In the case of the 1970 Washington quarter with the D mint mark, these defects are usually found in the quarter's surface, often giving the coin an uneven or pitted appearance. Lamination errors like this one are caused by impurities in the metal or issues with the dies during the minting process. For collectors, these errors are highly valuable because they provide insight into the intricacies of coin production, making the error coin a unique artifact in the history of the U.S. Mint. The 1970 Washington quarter with a lamination error is a highly coveted piece for serious collectors. While the regular, non-error versions of the 1970 quarter are not especially rare, this particular error coin stands out for its unusual features and imperfection. Coins with minting flaws like this are considered unique and are highly prized by collectors who appreciate the rarity and historical significance of these anomalies. Error coins in general tend to be valued at a premium compared to their non-error counterparts, especially when the error is noticeable and dramatic. The D mint mark, in particular, adds another layer of rarity and value, as collectors often seek to complete mint mark-specific collections. The lamination error further elevates the coin's appeal, as it demonstrates a manufacturing flaw that is particularly difficult to replicate, making it a one-of-a-kind treasure in the world of coin collecting. In today's auction market, the value of a 1970 Washington quarter with a large date and a demint mark in lamination error condition can vary significantly based on the severity and prominence of the lamination error. On average, you might expect such a coin to fetch anywhere between $30,000, with higher-end examples reaching beyond $35,000 if the lamination error is particularly striking and the coin is in relatively good condition,